Here's the latest, Mr. Swayze.
Oh, thank you. You know, in the course of my work, I've reported many big stories such as this one. Stories of catastrophe and violence, and sometimes of heroism. Headline material, most of them. The out of the ordinary, which attracts attention. But how many times I've wished I could report on some of the everyday things that never get into the papers. There are all over America ordinary men who do ordinary jobs extraordinarily well. There are housewives who lay the foundation for our future in the way they run their homes and rear their children. There are groups who devote themselves to the welfare of their fellow men. I think such stories need to be told. And the story behind Whitehall 41500 is such a story. Whitehall 41500 is a telephone number in Chicago, one you may never call. But even if you never use it, it's an important number in your life. Dial it, and you reach America's doctors, not individually, of course, but as a group. What doctors do as a group is sometimes more important than what they do individually, as Bill and Lita Foster once discovered.
Third down and 5 yards to go. Once again, they're in position. Here's the snap from center. Gilbert takes it. He's fading back. He's going to pass. He's looking. Goodson's in the open out there. There's the pass.
Steve sure is taking a long nap today.
Line.
Yeah.
So it'll be a first
Excuse
and
me.
10 for the Tigers. Gilbert doing a great job this afternoon.
You know, I think I'll just go in there and look at him. It's been more than 2 hours.
Out of the huddle, up the line of scrimmage again. Here comes the snap. They're going to...
Bill? Bill?
What's the matter? You almost scared me to death.
Bill, look. The baby's sick. He's burning up.
What is it?
I don't know, Bill. What do we do? He's so sick. Oh, he doesn't...
Look, you got to get a hold of yourself. I'll call a doctor. Martin.
Viking 31661.
All right.
Oh, Bill, hurry. Can't you hurry, please?
I'm hurrying. Hello? Dr. Martin? Look, something awful's happened to our little boy. He's red as a beet, and he can't get his breath, and his eyes, well, he doesn't seem to be able to see us. He what? Oh, this is Bill Foster. Well, no, doctor, he didn't. He was all right when we put him to bed for his nap. Yes, sir. Right away. He wants us to beam out of the hospital as fast as we can get there.
Has the child taken medicine intended for someone else in the family? Did he swallow any pills of any kind?
No, we keep the medicine cabinet locked, and he can't reach it anyway.
What about nose drops? Have you been using nose drops?
Oh, no, not on Stevie. He hasn't had a cold in months.
Has anyone in the neighborhood moved recently?
No. What difference would that make anyway?
Well, sometimes people clean out old medicines when they move and dump them in their trash burners. I thought if he discovered a bottle while he was outside...
But we have a fenced-in yard, and I never let him out of it. Is he poisoned? Doctor, is that what's the matter with him? I swear I keep everything that's poison out of his reach. He never...
Mrs. Foster, I have to have your help. I have to know about anything you can think of that Stevie came into contact with today that he doesn't ordinarily.
Let me think. Breakfast was just the same as usual, and then I gave him his bath. I dressed him. A safety pin. Could he have got hold of a safety pin?
If a safety pin were causing the trouble, you'd have known it right away. Something unusual, Mrs. Foster.
But I tell you, there wasn't anything unusual. He went outside with me, and he watched me plant flowers. I remember I got so angry at him because he chewed up the flower packet.
He chewed them up? Did he swallow anything? What kind of seed was it?
I don't know. Petunias, marigolds. That couldn't be it. Flowers couldn't hurt him, could they, Doctor?
I don't know, Mrs. Foster. I don't know. Bill, why don't you take your wife downstairs? I think you could both stand a cup of coffee.
No, I can't leave Stevie like this.
It's all right. He can...
Operator, this is an emergency. I want to place a call to Chicago. The number is Whitehall 4-1500. That's right. Whitehall 4-1500.
Doctor?
He's responding to the treatment. I believe he's going to be all right.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Bill.
It's all right, Mrs. Foster. I had no idea that some of the flower seeds were poisonous. But something had poisoned him, so I took a chance. I called the one place where they might know, where they might have figured out that something like this could happen. They traced it down right away. Some of the flowers you were planting belong to the nightshade family. Nightshade, belladonna poisoning. I knew what to do when I knew what I was up against. So you can thank the AMA as much as me.
The AMA?
American Medical Association, the doctor's organization.
Well, all I can say is I'm sure glad somebody had figured out what could happen and what to do about it.
What you have just seen really happened. Stevie Foster's life was saved because of a call to Whitehall 4-1500, a call to the American Medical Association. This incident is only one among thousands in which the AMA, a doctor's organization, has benefited the public. And yet, like Bill Foster in the story, many people know very little of the organization or of the hundreds of ways it works for them. The AMA building in Chicago is the headquarters from which the activities of 165,000 physicians are brought to focus on your needs. This is an organization of doctors, but ultimately for you, the American public. AMA benefits you directly through your family doctor. Because of the efforts of the AMA, America has the best trained medical men in the world. During the years they are in school, American doctors study under the highest medical education standards, standards set up with the help of the AMA. As long as he practices, your doctor's membership in the AMA keeps at his fingertips information on the latest medical discoveries, new techniques, equipment, and medicines. At frequent AMA medical meetings, such as this, your doctor's education is constantly being brought up to date. The reports, the demonstrations, the displays at these AMA meetings help your doctor to serve you better. But sometimes you need more than a doctor's skill. Sometimes you need medical facilities. Mrs. Evans here has just been advised that surgery is necessary to save her life. She asks herself fearfully, will I be safe in the hospital? For Mrs. Evans has heard rumors of explosions in operating rooms and of patients who died not from the operation, but from infections. Mrs. Evans, or anyone facing hospitalization, need have no fear if this certificate is displayed in the hospital. For this certificate means high standards, standards set up by a joint commission composed of the American College of Physicians, the American College of Surgeons, the American Hospital Association, the AMA, and the Canadian Medical Association. Seeing this seal tells you that your hospital has met rigid requirements set up for your safety. Requirements to guarantee skilled and justified surgery. Requirements that set up safeguards against cross-infection, negligence, fire, or explosion. Requirements which guarantee a skilled staff of qualified doctors, nurses, and allied personnel. AMA's concern for high standards affects you in another way. Suppose you, like this man, had just been told that you had diabetes, that for the rest of your life you would be dependent upon medication. Would you wonder whether the drugs you needed were safe? Whoever you are, have no fear. You can depend on the purity, safety, and efficiency of the pharmaceuticals which will go into your doctor's prescription. For the American Medical Association, working with the pharmaceutical industry and federal agencies, helps to ensure the highest standards for safety in all drugs. Make sure new medicines are adequately tested and gets word to your doctor about new drugs proved safe and effective. But insisting on high standards in doctors, hospitals, and drugs is far from being the limit of the AMA's interest in public health. Take Maple Grove, for instance. Maple Grove, a small community with one doctor. Doc Hamilton was getting old, and the medical facilities in Maple Grove just weren't up to date. There was no hospital, only a tiny medical office in Doc's drafty old house. But the people of Maple Grove weren't deeply concerned. They had old Doc for everyday ills and emergencies, and other than that, they didn't pay much attention to community health. And then Dr. Hamilton died, and no new doctor moved in to take his place. Where do you go when you need a doctor and there is no doctor? Whom do you blame? Uneasily at first and then angrily, the talk in Maple Grove town meetings turned to denunciation of the medical profession. The fix they were in had to be somebody else's fault. An indignant letter reached the offices of the AMA in Chicago. Has your high and mighty organization forgotten about us little folks out here in the sticks? Far from it, Maple Grove. Rural health and locating doctors in places where they can best serve the people are vital programs of the American Medical Association. The AMA Physicians Placement Service and similar services of the State Medical Association were ready with the names of doctors who were seeking practices in a rural community. But Maple Grove needed to be made aware that it too had a responsibility. With the help of AMA publications and advice, Maple Grove learned how it could help itself to help. The people of the town built a small clinic with their own hands, donating what they could to equip it, from 50 cents to $50. They also fixed up a home which a young doctor, already heavily in debt for his education, could rent reasonably. Their efforts proved their willingness to work for better health in their community. And through the placement services of the State Medical Society and the AMA, they found their young doctor. You can read Maple Grove's story in the feature section of your Sunday paper, a glowing tribute to community action. Now, you won't find in here any mention of the medical profession's part in the story, but AMA played a role in Maple Grove and in thousands of other communities across the nation where more people have the opportunity for better medical care. And that, in the end, is all that matters. To achieve its goal of better health for all, the American Medical Association has formed a number of committees which probe into all manner of problems related to health. One such committee studies occupational hazards. Its findings have helped to make working conditions safer for those who may be exposed to radioactive material, or for those who earn their livings in mines, paint factories, or dust-laden areas. Under the authority of another AMA committee, research is carried out on the ingredients which go into face creams, hair dyes, and makeup. For the new cosmetic you try out in hope of restoring radiant beauty to your skin may sometimes contain elements which could cause ugly, tender blotches to appear on your face. And against this painful possibility, the AMA stands guard. For 47 years, a joint AMA National Education Association Committee has been studying health problems in education, seeking answers to questions such as these. Is the school environment healthy? Is the lighting in the schoolrooms adequate? What about the individual child's health? Is he learning good health habits? Has he had his eyes examined? His hearing tested? What about his teeth? Does he get the right kind of hot lunch in the school cafeteria? Where the answer to any of these questions is no, county and state medical societies and AMA work with teachers and parents to correct the situation. For the future of the nation rests on good physical and mental health in its children, and the American Medical Association has accepted its responsibilities to the future. As you stroll down the aisles of a supermarket, you will see evidence of the work of another AMA committee. one that's concerned with foods and nutrition. For here are infant foods especially selected and processed to help babies thrive. Low sodium preparations to help relieve high blood pressure. Low sugar foods and artificial sweeteners for diabetics and those on reducing diets. Vitamin D fortified milk to make this wholesome food even more nutritious. And plain ordinary bread. It took a committee supported by America's doctors working with flour producers and bakers to sell us on the idea of white bread enriched to whole grain value, just as it took AMA cooperation with food processors to help develop the other products we've seen. In all phases of your everyday life, from the conditions you work under to the food you eat, some AMA committee has contributed to keeping you healthy and strong. And yet nowhere does AMA concentrate more effort than on those happenings which strike down these strong. Accidents. For America's doctors know only too well that though they continue to gain the upper hand over most diseases, accidents now are getting the upper hand over us. Every 3 seconds somewhere, a serious accident. Every 5 minutes in America, a death resulting from an accident.
Okay, move along. There's nothing here you'd want to see.
How are you going to figure it? Dry road, straight away, broad daylight, no signs of a blowout. How are you going to figure it?
This one gonna make it, Doc?
Possibly.
What's the matter, a friend of yours?
Well, he was an outpatient at the hospital.
You think you may be able to tell us anything? We can't figure it. No signs of a blowout, no nothing.
He was under treatment for heart trouble.
Heart trouble, huh?
Sometimes I think I should have been in some other line of work. I mean, how are you going to figure it? Nobody doing anything wrong. The man has a license to drive. No law says he can't drive because he's got a bad heart. So he drives, and conks out. Another man gets a steering post rammed through him. His girl gets thrown out on an embankment. Nothing illegal, just 2 corpses and a cripple. How are you going to figure it? That it's nobody's fault?
Nobody's fault? We know that isn't true. A highway accident is the result of some person or something that failed. When a committee of the AMA studied thousands of accident cases similar to the one you've seen, they found that all too often the human failure was the cause. This AMA committee found also that once an accident had occurred, it was car design that was responsible for many serious injuries and deaths. People died from chest injuries inflicted by the steering column, from head injuries received as they struck the windshield or the dashboard, or from multiple injuries suffered as they were hurled from the car. What do the findings of this AMA committee mean to you? Well, already car manufacturers are translating this information into safer cars, cars with safety belts to keep you and your passengers from being dashed against the interior of the automobile. Cars with door latches which will not fly open on impact to send you hurtling from the vehicle. Cars with steering wheels especially designed to protect the driver from the steering column. State medical associations, which are all part of the AMA, are approaching the problem from another angle, that of the driver himself. Medical organizations are encouraging student driver training courses to counteract the lack of skill which is at the root of some accidents. A school bus driver should be more than skilled. He should be physically fit to drive. To make sure he is, the AMA has developed outlines for a bus driver's physical examination and is recommending legislation which will make these examinations mandatory. Should every driver be required to pass a physical examination? The answer, of course, is still in the future. But if such measures now being studied by the AMA do become actualities, we can eliminate many accidents which result from physical defects in the driver. Yes, doctors are working on your behalf in dozens of avenues. working with the armed forces to assure top-quality medical care to men in service and their families, and taking the lead in medical civilian defense efforts. In and around every home, there are likely to be unsuspected dangers, chemical preparations left where children can get into them. Harmless-looking cleaning fluids which give off deadly vapors. Or lethal sprays and insecticides. To combat these dangers, AMA committees are working to establish safe standards for the use of household chemicals, to promote adequate labeling, and to educate people in their proper use. The AMA wages an unrelenting attack on quacks such as this, who promise cures from phony devices, worthless tonics, and smooth talk. Thousands of quacks have been exposed by the AMA, which constantly investigates their fraudulent practices. Necessarily, many of the activities of the American Medical Association are background activities, largely unknown to the public. But here now, the voices of Americans who know at first hand the impact of the AMA upon their lives.
We hadn't planned on any such expense. I don't know what we'd have done if it hadn't been for voluntary health insurance. I told Dr. Hanson, I said, we're both lucky there's such a thing as health insurance. He just laughed and said, well, not entirely lucky, Mary. It was our medical society that helped develop health insurance to pay medical bills, and we've been promoting it ever since.
Well, it sure has helped us a lot.
Okay, so we call ourselves Alcoholics Anonymous. We know we're not anonymous. We're people with names and families and troubles. The same big trouble, all of us. We've all been through it, and we know this will help. It will if you'll only admit you're sick. You don't have to take our word for that. The doctors are all behind us. They're helping. By making the people who can take a drink realize the truth about us who can't. And by trying to figure out new ways to treat our problems medically.
AMA? Sure, I heard the AMA through our Farm Bureau. We've been working with the Medical Society to get better sanitation for all the farms in this county. Trying to get farm folk educated about good health. Doing the job, too. We got a healthier place to bring up our kids now.
You know, I dreaded the idea of getting old. A man hates to feel that he's outlived his usefulness. More than that, my health went all to pot right after I retired. Then this young Dr. Briggs gave me a talking to. He'd been to a meeting about, he called it the problems of our senior citizens. Might as well call it old fogies, without hurting my feelings any. That's just what I was. First, he said I had to eat different. So he fixed me up a diet for people of my age, and then he told me to get busy with something that wouldn't tax my strength. By golly, you know, I think he was right.
Hello, Mr. Day.
Hello there. Pushing this broom is a necessary part of keeping the school going, and it's just about enough to keep me going, too. You know, I believe I'd be dead by now of plain boredom if that doctor hadn't gone to that meeting.
Old and young, rich and poor, they tell their stories. Americans realizing the dream of a richer, fuller life. And you, too, share in the benefits of your doctor's concern for America's health and welfare. AMA and its members are responsible for the medical exhibit at your local museum or your county fair. For some of the medical TV programs you and your family watched last week. For the health education pamphlets your youngsters brought home from school. And for the magazine Today's Health, which you see in your doctor's office or receive at your home. In Washington and in every state capital, doctors are actively supporting medical legislation in the public interest. Bills to construct more hospitals. Bills to train more allied medical personnel. And programs to improve care for the aged and the mentally ill. No wonder then the switchboard at Whitehall 41500 is a busy place. for the medical needs of a nation result in hundreds of calls upon the American Medical Association. Yet, wherever the betterment of public health is concerned, your family doctor, through his organization, has answered that call. Why do I tell you all this? Well, perhaps it's because of these. The sensational stories I deal with so often. There's so much in the headlines about trouble and strife that sometimes we forget about the good that's being done. We forget that dedication to ideals and service to others are still the prevailing concepts in our way of life. The story of the American Medical Association is a part of that concept. Quiet, behind-the-scenes activities to accomplish a worthwhile purpose, to promote the science and art of medicine and the betterment of public health. The AMA, 165,000 doctors working as one to make your life a healthier, happier one.